Ah, crap, I forgot to add myself, but hey, welcome to the stream. I'll come up once other folks start to come in. But yeah. Welcome to my show, welcome to my stream and stuff. And I'll think about what to do next and everything. Currently not really gaming, but yeah. But then again, it's not really. I guess it's more or less on the education and the entertainment side of things. But how's everybody doing today and tonight? Now, here's a very important subject matter about retro gaming and basically preservation, because Nintendo and the ESA went nuts and basically shut down Vim's lair this month, which is crazy and wild to even think about, which blows my mind. So that means for us retro gamers, for the games we truly love and enjoy, is that it's looking kind of bleak and bare bones, depending on where you look at, because we're talking about a subject matter of emulation, which I'm okay for emulation, but it's how you technically get the ROMs. But it's like, why should companies or the ESA care so much about a 40-plus-year-old game or a 30 to 20-year-old game? But I'm simply saying, get your stuff legally. But also, I'm not bashing retro gaming stores, because that's definitely a category and market that is highly over inflated, or just in that department, which I highly enjoy and like retro game stores, because I like that sense of nostalgia and everything. And the reason why I decided to come up with this StreamYard and just simply have this little heart to heart and just be real with you and open with you guys, because it's a little bit of a different content that I want to talk about, and it's a little bit of a podcast. I'm not spewing drama or being overly in my emotions, but just sharing the facts on what I know what's going on. Because we all know Nintendo's been squares about this, and it's only because Nintendo cares too much about their IPs, and it's only because of Donkey Kong in the 80s, which that's a funny story in the meantime. And I'm not being a hater. I mean, Nintendo and people will say, or other people in the retro gaming community will say, no, I don't understand. I'm like, I perfectly understand. But my main issue and criticism on the subject is that if you are reselling it and illegally selling an IP that is owned by Nintendo, or if the ESA has deemed it as illegal, please don't resell it. For the love of God, don't sell it. Or try to resell it when it's technically not legally yours. All I'm saying is that, and of course, a lot of this won't be heard or said, but it's not about the fact of the big N or the Nintendo, but I got this idea last week when I was watching some ordinary gamers or Mudahar about the subject, and it's difficult. It's looking bad, and it sucks. And I'm not too keen on that, because that means we're in a tough spot. But I'm also simply ranting and raving that we shouldn't have to go to, well, DK Oldies is practically dead at this point. But I don't think it's fair for us retro gamers that we have to put up or go through this under the knife of Nintendo or the ESA. And it's just literally just twisting the knife in our backs. And it's like, come on. Because, let's see. There's not too many places, and of course, I get it. Nintendo wants to look out for their consumers and their customers about how they get the ISOs or the ROMs from on sites just to protect us from computer viruses, but at the same time, not every site is harmful. And also, that's just kind of like bad apples in general. And simply for the things that goes on, it's like video game preservation. It's like I am a little bit of a video game historian, and I would like to keep all this, going at a relatively decent pace. And not only that, it's like if and Nintendo and the ESA, if you care about these IPs, it's like please at least do something with it, or you simply don't use it at all. It's like Mega Man needs more love, but I'd say Capcom wouldn't be good selling Mega Man to Nintendo because even Nintendo wouldn't be able to know what to do with an IP that was on their Nintendo consoles for a very long time before Capcom decided to jump ship and go over to Sony. But it's nice to know that there's still a lot of gaming companies in the developer side of things. But what I would like to address is that some ordinary gamers said that even Sega is not for just being on the bandwagon of Nintendo to keep their IPs safe and in check, but it's like I don't really think Sega cares that much because they're in the position of simply Sony Japan and also and Capcom. So they're just developing games. So I don't quite understand why Sega would be like hating their own games, and plus I don't think Sega really hates their consumer base or their fan base, but I honestly think Nintendo hates us retro gamers, and it's like, I mean, the Nintendo Switch Online is a great service and everything. But it's like, come on. You guys haven't really done really a whole lot with a lot of the past IPs, and like, well, except for Zelda, that was pretty recent. But I also want to address and say that if games of this current gen that are still being currently sold, please support the official release. Um, no, Lay, it's just me currently. I'm just by myself. I'm not in a call with anybody. Yeah, I just been rambling and talking to myself and just talking to the very few viewers that I have and addressing a few things. And of course, Team 4 Star has always said that please support the official release. And I get it. A lot of the retro games at retro gaming stores are fairly or reasonably priced. But if you look at anywhere else when it comes to like hey, what's up, ATV? What's up, Retro Rescue? Welcome to the stream. Glad that you're here. And good evening to you. But if you look at like the very rare games like Xenogears, The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, you're going to be looking at very expensive in the triple digit to quadruple digit area of retro gaming. Thank you. We can agree to that because Nintendo is Square's, but don't get me wrong. I sincerely love Nintendo and Sony and Sega, the major big three. And this is why I think it's important to point these out and simply talk about retro gaming in general, because how do we say the archive is just one big library that's for free and it's open source. Anybody can get their hands on quite a few things while you're at the archive or in the Wayback Machine. So preservation there, it's definitely a legacy of history to be passed down, and the archive can be simply at the bat of an eye can be gone in a matter of seconds or in days if anybody decided to take it down. But that's the legal preservation of the archive or its purpose. And I'd say, as a retro gaming community or just variety of games, hey, what's up, Moltres? Welcome to the stream. Glad that you're here. I mean, with the legacy collections, that's definitely well worth preservation and worth acknowledging. It's mad as they all are annoying with the way they take down these sites, but then if they're not selling them or making them available, the games are just lost. That's exactly the point there. It's all about preservation and basically it's how you sell yourself and how you want to keep a IP thriving and for self-preservation and also pass down the history. Because if Nintendo is a family company, then think about the next generations to come. Because we all know that the first model of the Nintendo Entertainment System, my brother's NES was having cart reading issues for the most part every time we went to the video game store to rent a game. Oh yeah, it's definitely open to viewers whenever people decide that they're ready to come on stage with me to talk about it. Because it's a very important subject. Hey, what's up, Henny? Of course, I'll keep talking to him, Henny. I would have to give the link, but yeah. And of course, there's the part where I can simply do it like that. And that's basically the StreamYard link. And right now, I can only support like up to 6 people in my studio, but yeah. And thank you, Streamlabs. Weird. Okay, I think I've gotten the hang of it, but yeah. And oh yeah, Earthworm Jim and yeah. that Doug TenNapel, right? Which unfortunately Nick Rekieta is now a lolcow. Oh yeah, more retro Sega games. Oh yeah. But I want more effort from higher companies for video game preservation, but I honestly feel like it will only get worse. Oh, it's probably indefinitely or inevitably most likely to get worse in the near future if nobody really thinks about, oh, that's right. My generation or first release of PlayStation 1, I was having disk reading issues, and that's how I know that my PlayStation 1 was nearing its life cycle to the end. And it's like our consoles, our PlayStation 4s, our Wii U's, our Wii's, 3DS's, those all have an expiration date. They will all eventually, well, if you don't take good care of your consoles, eventually they will eventually get broken. I mean, let's look at Sony's little history because when it comes to Sony, when it came to their PlayStation console, and we all know about Bleem, which Bleem was playable on some Sega Dreamcast or was definitely a legal emulator, but Sony tried to fight it and then they just allowed it to be legal. And that's some of the earlier processes or the earlier stuff about gaming emulation. And the importance is that we as gamers and we as a retro community or those who grew up on the classics, it's important to be aware of these things. Exactly, Moltres. And the only thing that puts pressure on is basically the computer itself. And of course, these days you need a pretty decently good computer, but I'm saying just do it the legal way. And I'm just saying, well, yeah. There's that, and then if you're a good gamer, you wouldn't need to use the save states. But yeah, I totally get where you're getting with that one. And this is why I will say that, I mean, yeah, some people have been saying if it was like a library to keep all that situation for preservation, it's like, just let us have a rental service and we'll give it back to you or we'll buy it legitimately. That's how it should work. It's a great idea in theory, and I think it would be very successful. That way, you add more ad revenue into your business and your company. Yeah, that I get that. I can relate to that. And that's also another key feature about simply going with emulation, because it basically goes with accessibility. Hey, Mario Land 1 is actually a very good game. One of my favorite games for the Game Boy. Now you have to basically rent it, which is lame. A few years ago, I went to play some SNES games on a trip, only to find out my subscription had ended. And for that, my criticism and me judging with my money about the expansion pack kit for Nintendo Switch Online is a great idea, but we all know, and my criticism of Nintendo is that if we're doing 4 players, we all know that in history, from the Wii to the DS to the 3DS and the Wii U, is that Nintendo doesn't have very good netcode or net service. And it lags even when it comes to like certain multiplayer games, like when it first came into Brawl, is that even if you do have a Ethernet cable or anything like a wired connection, yeah, it's going to ruin your day. Even when it comes to the Clash of Ninja Revolution series on the Wii, that couldn't even keep up. It was laggy and not a fun experience and accessibility. Oh yeah, Moltres, I 100% agree with you on that. Of course, the bigger the party or the lobby in Smash Ultimate is that you're going to have that problem. Because when we look at it in a perspective in context from both Sony and Microsoft, is that their netcode is relatively better than Nintendo's. And Sony, in other cases, like kept up with the PS3 and their PS4, even with the PS5. Nintendo could be doing better with their netcode. And furthermore, it's like if Nintendo kept doing the eShop thing or the Wii Shop on the Switch, we would technically have to buy the game digitally, not rent it, not use the subscription. Oh yeah, Parsec is great. Nintendo has never got the online experience stable for sure. Yeah, we can definitely agree on that, just in a general sense of a community. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But it's like, yeah, it'd be great if, like, Nintendo for their Switch, if they had a different idea about going about their online service, is that you basically buy the game digitally and simply did in the past 2 generations from Gens 8 and 7, buy the game from the Wii Shop and everything, or the eShop, and if their friend bought it digitally, just simply have multiplayer that way. That would probably be one of the solid ideas if Nintendo decided to go that route, but we all know how it currently is after 7 years. And of course, I feel bad that the developers of Izu had to basically cut their losses and keep emulation legal. Oh yeah, that is 100% or 110% true. Nintendo are still in the couch co-op zone, which is great, but I mean, look how long they held onto using carts. Mm-hmm. And going back to Game Boy, it's like, yeah, with the first generation of Game Boy, which that was made by Gunpei Yokoi, which Gunpei Yokoi made the Game & Watch series and made Mr. Game & Watch the main character before Mario. But the Game & Watches are still a good piece of video game history. But with that first model of Game Boy is that it took 4 AA batteries. And if you didn't take good care of that Game Boy, you're going to get a little bit of battery erosion or otherwise battery acid. And once the Game Boy Pocket and the Game Boy Color came out, you were only reduced down to 2 AA batteries at that time. Of course, I'm not complaining and I'm not hating. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with having physical media. Digital media is also good for the sake of preservation. I mean, I still have like a good bit of physical games to say, oh yeah, I totally have that. I own that. Yeah, and knowing Nintendo, it's like with the Wii and Wii U services, it's great that everything you have from the Wii shop when transferring all that stuff over, but that whole Wii to Wii U transfer is that I hate it that it formats your Wii. So that means whenever you want to go back to your games on a legitimate Wii, is that you have to basically do that save data all over again. Oh yeah, Sega Game Gear, that was a real hog. Oh, but the Sega Game Gear, 6 batteries in the Atari Lynx. Yeah, those were ugh. And also, the nice thing about like the digital copies on the Wii from the Wii and all that and Mega Man 9 and 10 and also virtual console of that sense is that you're still buying a digital copy. But now you still buy your own digital copies on the eShop on the Switch, but when it comes to everything else of that online service, it's just a rental and nothing else. It's basically Netflix. Oh yeah, Switch 2. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey AJ. Welcome to the stream. Over time, you will eventually lose. No worries, Moltres. I totally get it. And I appreciate everyone's input and for listening. But still, like when we go to like Them's Lair, it's very difficult to even get the games there. And I don't even think Dem's Lair is legally wrong. Hi, Tiana. Welcome to the stream. And it's like Dem's Lair was the longest running website for preserving all of the ROMs and the files and the information. And Nintendo kind of has the right idea, but it's like it's not really truly a library, but there just has to be more to games. Yeah, but they were also very compliant to Nintendo, and it took them like maybe 20 years to officially shut it down. But the ESA is like the only one that cared. Being a PC gamer too, I'm so used to the buying digital thing, and to be honest, I'm okay with it. At least for now, as it is basically a long-term rent. Oh yeah, like of course, AJ, this is an important subject, and we need to go through it. The downfall of Dem's Lair. Dem's Lair is definitely older than GameCube. I mean, and let's think about this. If if like all the gaming companies really wanted to go out of their way to not make ROMs such a big deal, because it's emulation in itself isn't illegal, it's just how you get the game or the file. But it's like Nintendo could practically pay the websites their ad revenue if they really wanted to, just for the ROM preservation of the data and everything. And we've been talking for half an hour. And of course, this is nothing about politics. It's just about retro games in general. Whereas I probably talk about that too much. Oh, and since I took a sip of my tea, I guess I'll start my cam now. Because here's my cup of tea. Oh yeah, AJ, I see your point there. Yeah, we all keep hush hush about that. But we're not, for those of us who actually go through it, it's like, how do I say it? Speaking on the matter is that I do retro achievements, and I like to put up my gamer score higher on that website, because that just like brings more life and more flavor into the games I start to play, especially knowing that Snatcher CD, knowing Hideo Kojima is never going to remake the game ever. I mean, why bastardize or claim that, oh, we're nothing but thieves and pirates? Of course, to an extent, a little bit, if you really think about it, piracy is a little bit profitable in the economy. It kind of helps. But Nintendo is like, however billion to trillions or however rich that company is that they could share like more people on the websites that basically distribute ROMs in the files. Precisely. That's actually a very solid idea that might, in theory, would work. I mean, we all know Shigeru Miyamoto, Eiji Aonuma, uh, Yoshio Sakamoto. We all know the people aren't getting any younger. They're getting older over time. So are you going to say in 70 years that, oh, due to the rights and complaints of a dead man, we're going to hold on to this IP for hostage? I mean, it's kind of like the same thing with Hudson Soft and basically Konami. Konami has Bomberman under hostage in Bloody Roar. We have that to think about, which isn't a very good look in a business sense because Hudson wanted to stay around. And after no less than 20 years, 2 decades, we haven't gotten a new Bomberman, or in 10 years, or not a single Bloody Roar game. Hey, Michael, that's actually solid. Yeah, cameos. I mean, all that. I like those movies. Of course, Wreck-It Ralph is a Disney movie. Not saying that I hate Wreck-It Ralph. Not only that, Disney has basically gotten rid of Donald Duck and Goofy and Mickey Mouse. And due to the current state of Disney, which there hasn't been too many Mickey Mouse movies as of late, and Mickey Mouse is now public domain. And of course, a lot of people are saying about the whole Mega Man franchise debacle is that Mega Man 11 did fairly well when it first released. And the guy in charge, or who was behind Mega Man 11, had to step down and basically left Capcom. So, once again, Capcom has no real idea what they can possibly do with the Mega Man franchise. And Capcom, personally, likes the X series the most and also Classic series, but they hate Mega Man Legends. Hey, what's up, Gooner? Welcome to the stream. And of course, Replayed Revo, which has said and has written a complaint to Capcom to prove it that they can actually do something other than just Resident Evil games and other legacy collections, or more of the anniversary collections. I mean, I got no problem with Resident Evil games. In fact, I love that series. And one moment. There. I mean, oh yeah, Michael. I mean, wouldn't it be a great idea if Link, Mario, Samus, Pit, Captain Falcon, Pikachu, and Kirby appear in a movie? I never said Resident Evil 6 is my favorite. I never even played that one. And I didn't even. Oh, wait. Never mind, I have played Resident Evil 5. But I like Village and 7. But I like Resident Evil 4, 3, 2, and 1. And, well, technically sort of in that order, but yeah, I like Forza the most. Oh, of course. I mean, I haven't really like spent a whole lot of time like into 7, but Biohazard was definitely great. Oh, it's in first person. Hey, what's up, Matrick? Bonjour. But yeah, on the other hand, it's like if games are still being made and purchased for this generation, it's important that please don't download the files and do not emulate it, because that's when it's like, oh, 5-figure discount. And that's my whole issue with that, is like, if games in this generation are still being relatively produced and made and sold, please just go out to the store and buy it. Even if you have to pay maybe $60 or $70 for games these days, but try to support the companies that give you the game. But games from that was my knee popping. But games from the 80s, maybe the 70s, the 90s, and the like from 20 years ago, that needs to be preserved and held in a museum or something. But I'd say those warrant more preservation, even if they are lousy, horrible games like Independence Day. That game was awful. Or Reboot. Just general idealizations of that. Because when when games simply cannot be like being sold on eBay or Amazon, it's like you got to think about that. Is that even legal? But then again, that's kind of a part of the retro gaming collecting market. Which, by the way, I do have a physical copy of The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, but I also have a digital copy on my PS3, which I played and beaten that on my PS3, which didn't take me too long. But it's the legacy and the memories behind all of that. I mean, Capcom, if they really wanted to, they could just decide to have an anniversary collection of that. Not sure how that would precisely work. And Pac-Man World, it's great that it got remastered. But my main gripe is that Bandai Namco shouldn't have not taken Pac-Man 99 off that list. Just look at me. I'm griping and I'm angry about that. Mm. But yeah, it's gonna, from here on, when it comes to some of those websites, is that if you want to do retro achievements, it's going to be a lot more challenging to get those games. Yikes, $200. And if we're looking at Mega Man Legends 2 and the Misadventures of Tron Bonne goes for $750, which I paid for that much for my physical copy. And when the pricing was still good for Mega Man Legends 2, I only dropped $100 for that. Not important. But we can all have an understanding that a lot of it's not just for the remakes. Well, it's not really Nintendo I'm concerned with necessarily. As much as Sega. Sega has known about that website for some time, and usually Sega doesn't care enough at all if anyone is using their games. Sega is more lenient, both East and West, from Japan to America. It's just, the challenges of modern day gaming. I mean, when it comes to like, oh, we're gonna have a Genesis collection, which they've been missing out on Burning Force. Burning Force is one of my favorite games from Namco before the merger of Bandai. And Burning Force is actually a pretty good arcade shoot 'em up. And also the idea of futuristic motorcycle and then turning into a jet hovercraft. My apologies, Shiny Moltres. Yeah, the Ghostly Adventures, that's a huge loss. Non-legally as much unless if it's obvious and apparent enough in a way, but now that Sega is getting involved, that means there's even lesser chances of getting the ultimate GoldenEye and Mario Party games. So you must pay several $100s for a PC copy or just buy a second-hand console disc. Yeah, that's another way to put it. So it's like pay literally hundreds for a PC copy when there are like 5 for sale out on the aftermarket or just pirate. And I have no problems with ROM hacks. I mean, that's definitely a production of love and passion into their little project to reinvigorate and make a whole new game out of it, despite the old game has to die in the process. That's not a big deal. Of course, it's a little bit unfortunate, but yeah. Not only that, there's a lot, like a few ROM hacks or a few fan projects I like Liquid Crystal. That's a fun game. And that was clever. Remade Crystal version better than the Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but that's just my bias showing on that. And then, of course, there's the Mega Man World 5 DX hack, which that one's really cool. And it preserved the original game in the process. Which, fun games in general. And it's mostly us of our generation or the generation after that. I mean, I have an N64 and I have literally had most of the Nintendo family together. And it's not something I will admit or say that I'll die on this hill, but it's like the special exceptions for Archive, it's like, okay, they're basically getting paid from Nintendo just to preserve something. But even as long as the Archive website stays up, I have no real problems with that. What gives me the problem is that, oh, Nintendo and ESA will decide to strike it down if they very damn well pleased at their own leisure, because, oh, they got the lawyers and the money to pay for their $1 million lawyers and stuff like that. That's a very good comment to read out loud. Someone snitched. And it was probably someone extremely childish, a hypocrite, not a good enough personality, and or unreasonable as usual. It'll not ever be someone genuine, level-headed, sensible, and that has me sort of sold. And from hearing that is that I grew up with a lot of the 80s games that were Nintendo hard for the time. Oh, that's a solid point. A lot of us are running out of ideas. We're kind of running out of steam and all of that. And the very point is that the libraries and preservation is that, yeah, there could be so much more done with the Nintendo Switch Online or just the eShop in general. I mean, Satoru Iwata had it nailed down when it came to the Wii and the Wii U. Of course, the Wii U was a failure. And of course, people deemed the Nintendo 64 not profitable because it didn't sell very well. And the whole antithesis or the run is that Nintendo could definitely do so much more to protect their IPs. I mean, simply put, is that if they just kept most of the sites around, is that they could technically be like, hey, we will pay you to keep the site running to preserve our IPs so that the next generation, because not every figurehead at Nintendo plus us are going to be around long enough to actually say that, oh, we're immortal, we'll be here forever. And more importantly, in the copyright laws of Japan, Japan shouldn't even lay their hands in Western cultures because our copyright laws are strict, but also we should be able to play our game with commentary. Intelligent enough and a good sense of it all. It's always a foolish person that always ruins anything and everything for anyone and everyone every single year, month, week, day, hour, and second. And that strict law, if Nintendo pays you to preserve their content and IP, hey, what's up, Velaz? Welcome to the stream, is simply do not give or basically use this incentive just so that you could be like, hey, let's sell it. You know? I mean, it's like, on back with the subject is that Japan's copyright laws need to be more westernized and basically put up to date. That way we wouldn't be on such a tight stranglehold for any of this so that we can understand. And basically, we gamers get what we want, and basically the consumers will be happy and we wouldn't have to complain about this. You know? If that makes sense. Gotta stretch. And that's generally what we have been going on about, and basically what our thoughts core relates to and what we really think and feel on the inside as retro gamers. Of course, it's just an opinion. I'm not forcing it on anybody. But it's like Nintendo can stop being squares. Of course, it's not the only time that it's happened, but it's happened multiple times on occasion. Hey, that's really cool. Not entirely sure what that emote is. Huh. But I'm locked in and focused, and I'll definitely say. But my warning and basically my little forethought. Yes. Can't agree with that full heartedly 110%. It's like, I get it. Games on the computer are a little more difficult if you have to use a keyboard. Of course, that's generally an interesting topic as well. And it's kind of funny because 20 years ago, before I ended up getting invested in USB controllers, is that I played most of the games on keyboard. And that was a headache. And I'm just saying, a lot of the gaming companies in Japan can definitely do better. But hold on a second, I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm back. Welcome in, Joshua. Welcome to the stream. But yeah, I had to be right back. But yeah, how do we say? Retro Achievements are actually working on a little project or for basically the GameCube one for Retro Achievements, but they still have a long way to go. Yeah, AJ, I totally get it. It's annoying. So I think that's kind of cool because it retro achievements brings in new life into certain games we love to play. And of course, that's just like when I think about it, I get excited about that. Of course, it just brings new life and basically revitalizes on what could we possibly do to have fun with a game that's already there, but make it more fun and entertaining for everybody to play with retro achievements. Of course, I still need to get back into action to play Knights of the Round on Super Nintendo. And basically learn all the mechanics, learn to proper parry and everything in Perfect Guard. And it came to my attention that this entire thing, what happened to Vim's Lair and every other website that does do this type of stuff for information, is that I'm not appalled, but it's like, ugh. Well, that just makes Google searching a little more difficult. It doesn't have to be challenging or that hard to look for something that we honestly want. Ow. And it's just simply like us as retro as a community for being passionate in games is that Alpha Omega Zen has even bragged or said, "Oh, I have this game on my smartphone." I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And whatever happens, happens. Whatever will be, will be. And I'm just glad to be here conversing and basically voicing my opinion. I'm not mad, I'm not complaining, I'm not crying salty tears. But it's like, man, that really just dampers the mood. It's like, man, how are we supposed to have fun? But yeah, and of course, for the whole retro gaming is that some people in like third world countries never got to actually enjoy a lot of the retro games, because with emuparadise.me being put down, is that even the ESA, it's like the website's still up, but you won't be able to find or get anything worthwhile there. Because we all know what happened during COVID in the span of just a few years. And it's just wild. Brave Fencer Musashi. That's a good game. And Brave Legend. What's the next trend? Talking about the remake of Brave Fencer Musashi 1 on the PS5, or something, and or getting the data from plug and play games and converting it, and or reverse engineering it into a ROM hack. Exactly. I mean, and that's a little bit of like, you would have to go to a black or gray market just to get something like that, or a piece of that retro gaming pie. But then again, I'm not really into bootleg games a whole lot, because it's not really the actual game. And it's worthwhile is why we're actually talking about this stuff. Let me know when that ad pops up, but yeah. I mean, and also speaking of which, F-Zero 99, a lot of people are saying, no, this isn't a good F-Zero game. I'm like, it's as good as we're ever going to get it to be. So I'm not saying shut up and take it, but I'm also saying Nintendo could probably do better. And I'm not complaining that F-Zero 99 is a bad game or a horrible game. It's actually loads of fun. And it's like, it doesn't really reinvent the wheel or adds new things or content into the F-Zero franchise after AX and GX. Because we all remember when Bandai Namco, or just Namco and Sega and Nintendo, they were the Triforce of arcade gaming 20 years ago. Of course, I probably seem to veer left and right or go over the place. Everyone might tell us all the trends they're going to try to do for the remainder of the year already. Let's just get the nonsense over with now, so we can move on with more important matters. So we can focus on more important matters. Works for me. And I might be going back and forth, or I might seem to be repeating myself or going around in circles. But the bottom line is that, well, I feel more comfortable and, somewhat more safe if we just have a lot of these retro games still on the internet. Oh, Michael, you have a good point there, my friend. Yeah, I want to have fun with games. The bum sticking time mediocre games, like, when are we going to get a Kid Icarus game? When are we going to get another Astral Chain game? We're not getting on the fan service. Huh. Yeah. And not only that, speaking of which, people are saying that Star Fox is getting the Metroid treatment. I'm like, probably to an extent, but it's like, I'm not going to not disagree, but it's a good point. And it's like, I mean, Kid Icarus was out of the game for practically 30 years, or close to 30 years anyway. And then, oh, we get Kid Icarus Uprising. Of course, I kind of think that Kid Icarus during Brawl, it would have been nice if we actually did get a game with Pit on the Wii, but Masahiro Sakurai did something amazing with Kid Icarus. And I'm not going to not say or deny that for 10 years ago. Or closer to 12. Uprising was phenomenal. That's dedication there, Moltres. And, let's see. And it's like, no matter how small my channel may be, but I feel more open and free to actually share this with all of you. Of course, if nobody seems to mind my ranting and rambling, or just me raving like a loon because, hey, I talk to the walls. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, just, I'm not making fun of anyone there with that chat. But I want to be open and as clear as possible. But I do understand that when it comes to certain things like that, is that video game companies are obligated and have every right to shut down anything that's illegal in their sense. But the notion is that if Nintendo wasn't like so on the upkeep on this, I mean, we would still have Vim's Lair around. Of course, people do say, oh, I still can get stuff from Vim's Lair. And it's like, yeah, but when I checked it a day after June 6th, I wasn't getting anything. But the whole clause is that if it's under fair use, it's under fair use. If we're doing something meaningful with the IP, or just keeping the longevity, or just simply preserving it in our own way, because sometimes I feel lazy having to plug in my other electrical devices. And I think it's brilliant that a lot of how it's like when we look at Microsoft did everything correct because they're preserving their library of games. But also, we can say that in Dreamcast for, hey, what's up, Stefan? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. I'm so pissed now because I might was going to ask someone to make ROM hack versions of the games on my list, but I did also say that Nintendo and Sega will try to control us a bit more in the summer. Oh yeah, tomorrow's officially the first day of summer. And I never thought the year 2024 video game preservation would look so lackluster and bare bones. Of course, I don't think I'm speaking out of my rear end, or just having word vomit or verbal diarrhea, but I just would rather address the issues and stuff. It's like video game companies on all three sides, from Sony and everything, could legally endorse and feed the website's money, and because preservation is definitely the whole goal and the idea here. Of course, I've probably said that a lot. And of course, that's probably me going around in circles. The roundabout game. But what could I possibly add more into this situation, or what I can input in this very panel or StreamYard? And I like to say that I'm a sensible person, and I am very laid back and easygoing and very understanding. Hey, what's up, Timmy? Welcome to the stream. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. PlayStation 1 games, any CD based game, or even if you look at an old Sega CD game, games that are solely disc based will rot away eventually. To the point that the game will no longer be playable. And that's just the life expectancy of disc games, or just in general, whatever you have physically. And the reason why I do a lot of retro games is because of the history and what it made us, or what my understanding of my generation is, that we all like to play video games. Yikes. Oh yeah, that would be the original Xbox's inside clock mechanism, which you have to basically take the Xbox apart and remove that. And not only that, even GameCube games, which was the first, Nintendo's first disc-based system before they went back to cards or flashcards, is that even GameCube games on this subject, even PS2 and Xbox games, the disc will surely rot away. Even our own music CDs will eventually rot away if we don't take care of them. Wow, Commodore 64, we have an OG! But yeah, that's probably me thinking too far back on it. It's not just today, they did it for 2 weeks ago. The baby boomers, the silent generation, the greatest generation, they're all still alive, but Nintendo and Sega don't even know how much mental and emotional damage they just did today to everyone. Potentially in the entire planet and cosmos. Lol. That's clever, AJ. Oh, Sega Master System. Good times. And like, since I like going to anime conventions and a lot of this other stuff, is that I end up seeing a lot of vendors like Pink Gorilla and Another Castle. A lot of these places are the retro gaming stores I like to regular the most. Of course, I've found games that were in the last gen, from like Gen 8, basically the Gen 8 Xbox 360, because I have an Xbox 360 and a PS3, and also a Wii and Wii U. Of course, I'm mostly a Nintendo and Sony guy. Of course, somebody would call me a Sony man-ho. Oh yeah, good stuff indeed. And my first two consoles, but besides me being a Sony boy or a Sony guy or a Nintendo guy, is that my first two consoles were a NES, a Super Nintendo, and a Sega Genesis. My first console was a Sony PlayStation. Never gonna forget that. Oh yeah. Mario 1 and Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country came out in 1994. It's been 30 years! And the Donkey Kong Country trilogy is phenomenal. It was great on Silicon Graphics computers. And that really pushed and upped the ante to the Super Nintendo. And And when we do these things in progress in technology and technological achievements and advancements, of course, that probably seems off topic, but we want to do what we can to push either our PCs or our gaming consoles. And Mega Man X was so minimal at best, because it wasn't heavy extensive, but it was that CX4 chip. And some of the stuff that's just for BIOS files is that some things that you have to do in order to look is like pulling teeth. I always refer to it as pulling teeth because we're just chomping at the bit here. And I have a great deal of physical copies and everything, and I do know my direct resources on where to look precisely. And I honestly think if we just go with progression in some sort of way, I'm pretty sure Nintendo, it's like I had no problem with Reggie Fils-Aimé, even though Reggie was responsible for basically being able to port over Mother 3 or simply the Simpsons arcade game was probably the best beat 'em up game. And considering that Smithers and Burns were the bad guys in the game. And when we stop to think about the Earthbound or Mother series, is that I have, when we come to the presidents here in America, since my state is basically housing the headquarters of Nintendo in Redmond, so I'm in a state with history and culture. But I haven't had any problems with Reggie or any of that, even though Reggie, I have no real problems with Doug Bowser. But when I stop to think about it, when it comes to Howard Lincoln, I have the hugest problem with him due to the history. But he's no longer the president or CEO in Nintendo. But the way he's done the business, because Howard Lincoln first started off as basically Nintendo's lawyer here in America. And it's like, wow, you actually are going with Nintendo's old copyright claims and laws when they're right here in America. Japanese business is savage, and it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, if you don't do anything with the IPs in 70 years, they all become open source. You're going to get the Mickey Mouse treatment. And of course, I was watching Nostalgia Critic today, and he definitely didn't want the Walt Disney Company or just the mouse up breathing down his neck over the Peter Pan situation. But it's like Shigeru Miyamoto has kids and grandkids. Same with everybody else that has been a part of the series we grew up with or on back in the early Nintendo days of the 80s and 90s. Because you're going to need someone that's, one, suited for the IP that will actually progress the story further and beyond. Before I was only not winning towards Nintendo and Sega towards gamers who don't care enough or much about being fake and phony, but now I'm not winning against Nintendo and Sega, even more towards people. Well, Well, Nintendo IPs will stay with Nintendo regardless of executives passing away. Same with how Mickey Mouse stayed with Disney, even though Walt Disney passed away. Precisely. If it becomes public domain, it's open domain. Steamboat Willie, anybody? Still, I'm pretty sure the archive has plenty of the old Walt Disney stuff when Walt Disney was still alive. The IPs, there's no changing that. IPs will stay with their rightful shareholders. Can't change that or fight that. And I'm not saying I'm fighting this openly, but it's messed up that a lot of these sites are disappearing one by one, where you won't be able to get very much of anything. Just go down a little bit of memory lane or nostalgia. Yay, Zelda movie. Oh, wait, I might have missed that. That's an interesting read, but at least we got the Super Mario movie. But I'm still waiting for Nintendo to make movies for The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, or even Kid Icarus. I love that Steamboat Willie is public domain. I don't have Disney has a gun pointed at anyone who does anything with it, though, ready to sue. Right? I mean, it's all about, just general principle that preservation is super important. I mean, at least Nintendo has entered the chat. Sadly, I don't think Star Fox and Kid Icarus will get movies. I believe Nintendo finally went with the Mario movie not only because of Sonic movie's success. Oh boy, Nintendo has entered the chat. I mean, there was the John Leguizamo movie and also the One Dead Guy. For that one Mario movie back in 93, 94. Alex Kidd, the movie. You'll play retro games eventually. They might even be forced to play the Switch games or they might just quit gaming altogether or transport to become a PlayStation or an Xbox gamer. That could happen. But not everyone knows Metroid, Star Fox, and Kid Icarus. If anything, they would get a show on Netflix or something, but even that is not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah, rest in peace, Dennis Hopper. Captain N the Game Master reboot. That I would like to see. Not only that, speaking of Captain N, did you know Haim Saban actually had a hand in Deke for a while, and then, we have to do something better than Saban, so we're just going to create SSSS Gridman, or Super Cyber Samurai Troopers. But yeah, Saban had a hand in the Captain N series. Funny enough. But what I found astounding was when it comes to Koopa or Bowser, when it comes to Dennis Hopper, I never knew he actually passed away 10 years ago. It blows my mind so many actors have had untimely exits. But like I said, a lot of people aren't getting any younger, and people can't keep creating games because, well, people run out of ideas eventually. Huh. Tickle, tickle. Then we're back to square one again, except this time we just happen to still have the stupid expansion pack on the Switch, in which more gamers will eventually go back to it if they aren't able to play. Really, Gooner? Oh, Dokuban Kingdom for Wii? Factory sealed? That's definitely well worth my book of opinion of salute. Oh, yes, and Disney is sleeping on these. We're still waiting. And yet, none of that has appeared yet. Huh. And or stream ROM hacks of games as much anymore, but it still wouldn't be as much of the same thing, though. I mean, and of course, we have to go with the logic of how the whole ROM situation works. Is that if your game is broken, and you own a physical copy, but it is broken, it is perfectly legal to download a digital copy for free of those games. I bought it from eBay for $280, and wow, it's worth a few thousand now. That's probably more worth than my computer in itself. A few grand. That's definitely a nod there. My most expensive game currently, or two of them, or a few of them, would probably be The Misadventures of Tron Bonne and Mega Man Legends 2. Those are the rare ones I have currently. And then the whole fact of the matter is that okay, my neck's not going to crack, but there's such a thing as the fair use clause, and then there's either you use it or you don't use it clause. It's that type of thing. But intellectual property is still important. And the thing that annoys me is that Nintendo and Sega don't want to directly have any characters in their games saying "stay in school, kids," or "cool moves, dude," and or "sweet moves, dude." At least if they. And that's the thing with the whole ESA and the whole like thing about Sega of Japan or whatever. in Nintendo is that it's like speaking on it about crapping on their own history of preservation of their games. Hey, that's good to hear, Michael. Is that and Mudahar, otherwise some ordinary gamers said. Exactly. That's all a part of simply rebuying it, but without having to rebuy it, without having to have that expensive cost fee. Is that I'll agree with some ordinary gamers or Mudahar about the fact that Nintendo but not putting Sega in this matter and the ESA is that they hate your games and they hate you as a consumer and buyer, which I kind of feel that is true because they just crapped on like 40 years worth of history and none of that is getting well preserved. And I'm a preservationist. That's a word. Yep, that's definitely a word. And when a thing or anything of nostalgia is well preserving, it's definitely worth putting down to the next generation of people to actually feel like, oh, this is really cool and neat. I like it. And that's how I really feel about the situation, and it's why I even talk about it now. Despite on how bleak and bare bones it is. Yay, Streamlabs. And I'm not saying it's in the mere aspect of context, but it's just the retro gamers aren't getting what they want or deserve by a corporation and company that isn't really treating their fan base correctly. And it sucks because we have to say goodbye to so many websites that actually house those things. Despite the legality of it. Of course, I find it a little appalling or just simply it's out of bad flavor or bad taste that essentially Nintendo would go this far. And it's only over a few ROM sites and everything, and it sucks. Games like Hungry Box and Nitro still destroying kids' emotional and mental capabilities with playing Smash Ultimate online, but at least there's no way Nintendo and Sega would be as bothered by anything. Right? It's a huge, like, what WTF moment. And it's astounding that. And I find it funny when it comes to something like a fan project like Pokemon Nuclear, is that I read something online that, oh, if you don't nip it in the bud, you're not going to be winning this in court because they're using an upstanding IP. And I find it, like, hilarious to, like, nonsensical to dumb that Nintendo actually goes this far. And they're so super territorial of their IPs, and it's ridiculous. Anything that has their mark or stamp on it, and it's like, nope, you can't play that. That's how I kind of feel like it is. I mean, if only if Japan had more like thought processes or just the good things of America rather than this old outdated copyright laws. But Japanese businessmen are brutal and savages. Hmm. Well, there was that April Fool's live action Zelda movie, so that was definitely something to consider. Huh. If our generation, Gen X, pulled back on games and only played the expansion pack stuff, mainly in Gen Z would just continue to play the Switch games like they usually do without us being involved in. Peter Jackson. Of course, I kind of remember that April Fool's joke about Zelda being released on April Fool's of 2008. I mean, if they decided to do a Zelda movie, I would hope they would do Twilight Princess, but then again, that's kind of like me being hopeful. Twilight and Ocarina of Time are definitely the best ones. mm, that's a good uh, one to pick up. Collector's edition. Oh yeah. Of course, I only have the standard player's choice Twilight Princess for Wii. And when it comes to games on the Wii, is that they're wrist breakers. Oh, gotcha. And then there's the remastered one for Wii U. Good times. Of course, I never really had the time to actually get my hands on Twilight Princess for Wii U or just HD. I only got the Wii U just so I can play Bayonetta 1 and 2. Skyward Sword is definitely interesting with their motion controls. Of course, when that game first came out, it had one saving data issue, and then also that Wii Motion Plus. Crazy games. But I've heard great things about Skyward Sword. Of course, a lot of people say Link is supposed to be this epic, legendary badass. And everything. But yeah, a lot of things happened. Of course, Skyward Sword, the re release Wii U is definitely underrated and a little bit on the obscure side. I definitely enjoyed what it was worth of Wii U. Switch prototype. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I like how the Switch is a hybrid because you don't have to have it plugged into the TV in order to play it. Because Nintendo does great at portables. Because they gave us the Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, and the Game Boy Color, and the Game Boy Advance. And also the Nintendo DS, which the Switch being a hybrid is why it does so well. What I like about the Wii U was because of the gamepad and being able to switch to TV mode and switching out of TV mode. And that was definitely innovative and definitely great ideas for sure. I just kind of think it's kind of crazy to not think about how the Nintendo Wii U gamepad isn't compatible with the Nintendo Switch. Wouldn't that be far out or quite a trip to see, right? I mean, it's definitely an interesting little idea I have, but we have reverse engineers that could actually probably pull that off. So, yeah, how do I say it? You folks are more than willing to join me on the StreamYard here, and we can talk about more things on the retro gaming preservation. In fact, I'll just pin it here. My knee again. Ouch. It's just loads of crazy ideas until something actually hits. It's kind of like a hit or miss. It's a little bit interesting since I don't quite have any gaming music going on. But that's okay. And that's generally a whole 2 hours, even though I would probably go for an extra other 2 hours, but hey. Seems like I might have ran out of steam or probably ran out of things to say. Things happen. And the more I thought about it, is that, everybody remembers that Reboot game when Reboot was still being around. Was made by Electronic Arts. There are just some games. Hey, welcome in, Psycat. I appreciate your lurk. I definitely appreciate the lurkers. And I appreciate all the support. Much love, y'all. Kingdom Hearts. All hail to the king. But, yeah, okay. Hold on 1 second. But even people hate Kingdom Hearts now. One, are you play Kingdom Hearts when I was young? Uh, young. I actually loved all the Disney cameos, and that you had a fight darkness, but now people hate it. Well, yeah. It's only because of Nomura. That's all Nomura's doing. Of course, it's good to see that Final Fantasy VII gets all the love, but yeah. But things sure have changed once Birth by Sleep actually hit the store shelves. And once that was released, everything just kind of went crazy from there. And that was definitely a unexpected but cool surprise to happen. And finally, people got what they wanted. They wanted that to happen in Wii U and 3DS, but it wasn't going to fly. Or at least that was the case, anyway. Possibly the case. Hmm. I didn't know that people compare Sora and Pit. It's an interesting take. Fascinating. Hmm. But yeah. It's an interesting comparison. But then again, Pitt had to handle everything in his own world, where Sora had to go from world to world with Goofy and Donald. And of course, meddling and interfering with other world business. Which King Mickey certainly said not to interfere or mess around with other worlds. Well, 2 hours. I don't think I can keep on talking for an extra 2 hours because I don't think I can come up with anything further interesting on the topic, but I appreciate you guys coming. And thank you for tuning in, and thank you for watching. Of course, this has been fun, me rambling and just talking. Hopefully I made some good points, though. And until next time, be sure to follow the Black Cat, and also, wherever I may go, surely there is a wolf pack behind me. And of course, you can't go wrong with this wonderful Samurai Wolfpack clan. So, I appreciate your time. Have a good one, and happy Thursday and happy Friday to everybody. Take care and everything. See ya.